let's bring in Jonathan Turley, George Washington law professor and a Fox News contributor. Jonathan, great to see you. So I don't know, where do you think all of this ends up? This was fascinating to hear from Bill Maher, puts it in a nutshell.
Now, 2 years later, the New York Times and the Washington Post have come around to say, okay, there was something there. It looks like the left-wing media just buried the story because it wasn't part of their narrative, and that's why people don't trust the media.
I mean, that's it, right? In a nutshell?
It is. I mean, the fact is that these media outlets had no choice but to pivot, because there is a serious risk now of an indictment coming out of Delaware. That indictment, very likely, if it does come out, would cite evidence from the laptop. So they had to make this pivot in anticipation of that risk. But it has left this really unintelligible position. You know, they're willing to recognize the authenticity of the laptop now, but they don't really want to talk about what's on the laptop, which are hundreds and thousands of emails and pictures, some of which refer to the President of the United States. And what's really odd about this new narrative, which is not just coming from the White House, but from these same media outlets, is that maybe Hunter Biden did engage in a multi-million-dollar influence peddling scheme. Maybe he did commit crimes, but it has nothing to do with the president. Well, that's just not true. I mean, these emails refer to the president. They use code names like the big guy or Celtic. In one email, a person is warned not to use the president's name. But more concerning are references to accounts that might have paid some money to the president and paying off bills or taxes. There's a reference to an office that the president and first lady would use that is allegedly funded by a Chinese firm. All of those are connections to the president. Doesn't mean the president committed crimes, but the suggestion that there's no connection is perfectly bizarre.
So what does this tell you about how this will ultimately be handled by the Justice Department? The fact that you've got Ron Klain, chief of staff to President Biden, saying he's confident that Hunter did the right thing, his words, as this federal investigation heats up. And you've got the president himself, not shockingly, still standing by his son. So where does that leave the DOJ?
Well, it puts them in an untenable position, because you have this absolute defense from the White House. Attorney General Merrick Garland has refused to appoint a special counsel. I have no idea how he has reached that conclusion. Now, the U.S. Attorney in Delaware may be aggressive. He may, in fact, indict Hunter Biden. But there is a serious appearance, if not a real conflict of interest here. It's impossible to investigate these emails without running across the president repeatedly. And so how do you do that as the Justice Department under this president? The case for a special counsel is absolutely clear here. But the White House is going to have trouble with this new narrative. Hunter Biden may be many things, but he is certainly not without blame. I mean, this was a raw and open influence peddling scheme worth millions of dollars. And the Biden family is known for influence peddling. They have been accused of influence peddling, including the uncle or brother of the president, for years. That's not doing the right thing. That is something that is a core and very common practice of corruption in Washington, D.C. If you want to influence powerful people, you give money to their siblings, spouses, and family.
It makes you wonder where all this would be today if the media wasn't running interference for Joe Biden and his son.
That's right. That's right, and they achieved their goal. I mean, the embarrassing thing for the U.S. media is they sort of look like a state media going into the election. They killed the story. And after 2 years, they're being compelled now to deal with it. But by the way, we would never have this moment if it wasn't for Bill Barr and continuing this investigation. To his credit, Merrick Garland did not shut down the investigation, but they wouldn't have had to reach this point if this investigation was not green-lighted and protected by Bill Barr.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us on that, Jonathan Turley. Thank you.